Hey everybody, and welcome to Esports Wave. In recent news, it looks like Arlington, Texas is going to try and become a hub for esports fans. Due to opening in the fall of this year, Texas is getting what is supposed to be the largest esports arena in the country. Several teams have paid into this in an attempt to make this place kind of their own home base, but Arlington itself put in $10 million for what they are hoping to be a 3,000-seat arena. Included among the teams that paid in are the Houston Outlaws. Like I've said in the past, it looks like among all the Overwatch League teams, the one who will probably be getting an arena first would be a team from Texas, as that seemed to be the most rabid of fan bases. So it looks like I was right, and I'm just going to have to wait and hope that Philadelphia pulls together. Until then, it looks like Dreamcast Guy will probably be the only member of Spawncast to be able to experience this type of thing. It has me a little annoyed. Probably going to have to plan a trip out there. In other news, it looks like there's a major push behind several esports leagues and their players towards unionizing. Now this has me pretty excited. Up until now, if you wanted to be a professional in the esports arena, you needed to be on teams that would win tournaments. That was pretty much your income. You'd get side things from stuff like Twitch, maybe even some brand deals, but you needed to join a big gaming house and they needed to be fairly victorious, or you were on very shaky ground as to whether or not you had a future. But this attempt to unionize doesn't just cover small games, it's mostly coming out of the much larger scenes, including ones that even felt like they didn't really need a player union. For instance, you have people like Thomas Kerbush, who goes by Mort, I believe. I actually haven't heard that name spoken out loud. He's working alongside Ellen Zavian, a sports labor attorney. You have people like Scott Smith, also known as Sir Scoots, who's trying to unionize CSGO. And even major players from the competitive League of Legends scene are looking to move away from Riot as their only source of income into a self-made unionized structure. And this isn't just a bunch of players coming together to be like, hey, if you don't meet our demands on pay and living conditions, we're not going to play at all. They're actually going the legal routes to be able to do that properly. And for several of them, the goal isn't even to take these little steps. It's not just to chip away and finally make it years down the road something that the future generations of esports players can be proud of. A lot of these people are looking to jump fully into it and get it 100% up to date with what modern sports have already. For instance, the League of Legends players have pulled a former representative from the National Basketball Players Association. That's a pretty big step. It's looking more and more like in the near future, the major titles will have proper career paths for these players that might even continue past the game's life itself. But now let's take a look at some Scandal news. We'll move over to some StarCraft Remaster into Korea, and if I were to throw out the idea of a player getting paid off to throw a game, would that surprise you? I'd hope not. I mean, that happens almost yearly, I think. It's not to say the problem is completely localized to Korea, but most of the news stories I see in this regard tend to have Korean, payoff, major tournament, and even StarCraft involved, all together. The trick to this, as some of you know, is that the Korean StarCraft League is pretty big. It was probably one of the first in the world to achieve the status of proper career maneuver for a professional esports player, so much so that foreign players would move to Korea to start a career playing it. There's a lot of country pride to the game, which is incredible. They even had a team generated from the Korean Air Force. But that career still only exists for some of the top players. Like I've been saying, unless everyone gets a big enough piece of the pie, unless everyone gets their hand in any of the ad revenue or anything sold or just all of it, any ticket sales, there's really just going to be enough people who realize that this isn't a bright future for them. Maybe they get a few wins here and there, maybe they get a good bit of money under their belt, but is it enough? Can they just retire at an early age? Not often. So normally what happens in a tournament is a player will realize maybe they're not going to get to first place. It's going to be a real hard uphill battle, but maybe they can get to second, or maybe they can get to third, and they'll get a little bit of money from the pot. But if somebody from the outside talks to them and goes, hey, if you throw your third match, if you go 0-2 and just get wiped and that's it, we'll pay you maybe a little under, or even at times a lot over, the tournament winnings. Now, more times than not, players will take this. They're not always caught, but the country itself seems to be able to track these kinds of things fairly easily at times. Now, they haven't named the player from the tournament that did this, though they did give a bit of a description, which kind of narrowed it down to about 2 people and A lot of us are pretty sure which one it is. So there you have it. 3 stories that might seem different, but they all share a sort of common vein. Esports has been exploding a lot, and at least in the US, we're starting to see it take on more of a role where cities are starting to open arenas meant specifically for it, which means it's got to be big enough to have a sustained group of players to bring people to those arenas. The unionization of them would just be this incredible thing that should hopefully, in the States at least, and maybe even outside, prevent these kinds of scandals to occur even here. That is at least the hope. Over the past couple years, we've seen a lot of betting sites for these types of games come and go. They get pulled down by the actual Fed. It's pretty incredible. Most of them have moved over to cryptocurrency as their form of betting to try to get around all these laws and rules, and it just makes it really skeevy because some of these people will take the cryptocurrency, and then if you win, they just don't give you anything. They hold on to it and go, man, this is a lot of money, and they vanish because you really can't do much about that. I mean, the US government isn't exactly into the idea of helping you get back your money that is solely existent to undermine the current country's economy. Only recently are we starting to see betting groups come together with the proper legal channels built into what they're trying to do. So hopefully this kind of, I guess, powder keg of a possible good or bad future for this actually works out. I'll have to keep my eye on it and see if anything happens in the next couple weeks. Until then, if you liked what you saw, hit that little like button. If you haven't already, subscribe. It's always good. And until next time.